Thank you for listening to mypainweb. Despite all that modern medicine offers, chronic pain often worsens and becomes more complicated over time. Connecting to mypainweb empowers you to take charge of your chronic pain. We'll help you achieve some quality of life as you face your own obstacles of living with chronic pain. You are listening to My Pain Web podcast, episode 12, Chronic Pain Psych Out. Today we're talking about how chronic pain psychs you out. So let's get started. Hey everybody, Steve Connick here. Welcome to My Pain Web podcast. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The My Pain Web podcast is the place where we talk about what it means to be suffering in a pain web. We listen, we share, we connect, we clarify, we cry, and we laugh. Together we empower and motivate to create confidence, worth, and self-esteem. My Pain Web helps you achieve a quality of life as you face the obstacles of living with chronic pain. You can connect to many chronic pain details and information at any time at mypainweb.com. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter at mypainweb and on Facebook. Today's podcast show discusses how chronic pain literally psychs you out. Let's start with this premise. Pain is natural. It's our body's response to both external and internal events. It's our survival mechanism allowing us to respond to injury. Now, the psychological component of chronic pain is well documented. In fact, pain itself has both physiological and psychological components. Pain is believed to be perceived and felt in the brain. The gate theory of pain is detailed, and you can find many links about it at the My Pain Web links location on mypainweb.com. There you can find much more information and specifics about the gate theory of pain. Now, this podcast is not going to get into a lot of the theory and a lot of the detail. However, this particular podcast about the psyching out of chronic pain is an extremely important complication of the pain web. One of the challenges is diagnosing the cause of pain. Now, in the case of chronic pain affecting the low back, an MRI or CT scan may reveal a herniated disc, which is irritating a nerve root, which can be the cause of pain. In a situation like that, appropriate treatments would be taken to resolve this particular issue, to reduce the pain and restore function. Now, what's perplexing, however, is the fact that the very same diagnostic finding of a herniated disc in another person may be completely obvious on the scan itself. However, it may not be producing any pain within that particular person. And then there's the psychogenic pain, which is pain with no apparent physical cause. This doesn't mean that the pain is not real. It just means the pain has no apparent physical cause. Now, this would indicate that the experience of pain is the psychological component. That's where the predominant cause of the pain is. In other words, the source of the pain is not readily observable through the use of diagnostic tools such as X-rays, MRIs, CT scans, or a multitude of other diagnostic tools. So psychogenic pain is nonetheless very real pain. Now, chronic pain can be caused by ongoing tissue damage, such as that herniated disc or osteoarthritis or a multitude of hundreds of other disorders. However, in some cases, there's no physical cause for the pain that can be found. That's psychogenic pain. It's also possible that pain persists long after the injury has healed. In many cases, chronic pain is a disorder itself rather than being a symptom of the disease process, like fibromyalgia, RSD, or something called CRPS, which is a chronic pain disorder. So let's replay that last part of the discussion that I mentioned because it's an important one. It's quite possible that pain persists even after the injury has healed. So in a follow-up, many chronic pain sufferers may have gone through this familiar scenario that I'm going to throw out here, and that is either an injury or after a surgery to repair something. During the follow-up, maybe it's the 6-month mark or the 12-month mark, you went in for that final follow-up, an X-ray or an MRI or a CT scan was taken, and the doctor reviews it and comes back with good news that everything on your X-ray looks perfect, everything is healed, it was a success. However, you're describing, well, wait a minute, why am I having so much continued pain? This is where chronic pain becomes extremely complicated and extremely frustrating in the least. Now, with my 20 years of battling chronic pain, I looked a little further and I want to share a little bit more with you. I am not going to get really technical and I'm not going to get too over the top here. But let's look at what's happening in this kind of a situation at the cellular level. See, there are several processes that can contribute to pain becoming chronic. Things like the pain receptors and the neurons along our pain pathway may become too easily activated. Connections between the neurons in the pathway can be altered. The brain and the spinal cord may fail to dampen or reduce, shut down the pain signals. Or the pain receptors that are normally silent or dormant can become activated by different types of inflammation. And then after nerve injury, nerves may regrow, but function may be abnormal. So there's a number of things that happen at the microscopic cellular level that could be causing chronic pain. Now, chronic pain that can persist for months or even years after an initial injury can be very difficult to treat. Let's go back to that quick thought that after something has healed, an injury or after a surgical procedure, and the surgery was a success according to the imaging follow-up from X-ray or CT scan, according to the doctor, you should be fine. Everything on imaging looks great. But what if you're still fighting that chronic pain, maybe even worse than what you did before that particular healing period or before that particular surgery? Well, people with chronic pain will experience devastating psychological effects. This is another reason why I'm taking a little bit of extra time on this podcast, because for me, this was truly a devastating and cruel strand within my pain web. And I'm sure that as we talk these through, you will concur and agree. What are some of the devastating psychological effects of chronic pain that lasts for months or years? Sleeplessness, anxiety, depression, anger, fear of further injury, irritability, isolation, hopelessness, substance abuse with either prescription pain medication and or alcohol, and an overall health fitness decline leading to high blood pressure and weight fluctuation. Now, that is a huge bag of complication. Depression, of all those that I mentioned, is one of the most common and potentially dangerous complications of chronic pain illness. It's understandable to become depressed when faced with a chronic illness. If the depression should last for more than a few months, it should be treated as a separate illness. And this is interesting. As early as the year 1684, Dr. Thomas Willis wrote of this. He said, "Sadness or long sorrow that accompanies many chronic illnesses." Let me repeat that. He said that sadness or long sorrow accompanies many chronic illnesses. Today we know that the link between depression and chronic pain is a two-way street. Chronic pain is depressing, and the depression they cause often exacerbates or increases the chronic pain. What further complicates this is that chronic pain and depression will also negatively affect family relationships, friendships, along with the ability to work. What happens? The pain web becomes further complicated, leaving almost nothing recognizable in life to the chronic pain sufferer. Soon, this pain web will weave through the remaining core components which really define who we are in life: self-esteem, dignity, and self-worth. Now, the final strand is the realization that the person looking back from the mirror is completely unrecognizable and foreign. Nothing is familiar, nothing is friendly, nothing is loved. You become totally disconnected. And it's no surprise that suicide rates, divorce rates, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and disability run very high among those living with chronic pain. There's a very excellent paper that's titled "Chronic Pain is Difficult to Treat," and I've posted that on my website. To find it, just go to mypainweb.com. Under the Pain Web Help, click on Intervention, and then under the Non-Invasive Intervention, you will see this particular topic of the psychological components, and in that section, you'll see the link, "Chronic Pain is Difficult to Treat." Now, how do I know this? Well, I've experienced it. You may have experienced it, or you may be wondering what's going on because perhaps you are going through some or all of this right now. What I can share with you is, what did I do? This is when I saw my pain web for the very first time. For the first time, I was able to see all the strands of my pain web and how my pain web was actually controlling every facet of my life. This was an understanding. This actually gave me a level of clarity. This was my first connect, or in a sense, a reconnect to myself. And as I reconnected to the loved ones around me and with those who cared about me, I could see how they too benefited from learning about my pain web. I realized the complication and strength of my pain web could no longer be fought by me alone. I knew I had to connect, and in some instances reconnect to others for help. I started to use my time, resources, and the little strength I had to find effective, qualified professionals that once I made the connection, we made a mutual commitment to help each other's efforts. Who did I reach out to connect? Well, I'm not ashamed to say there were psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, and of course, physicians. I know this step, it's not easy. Many times the first connection